What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Film Field NFL. This is Jack, and today this is a solo episode. We're going to be doing a little bit of shorter content here that's going to be going over some of the wide receivers, quarterbacks, edge rushers for the 2027 class, but this is very specifically summer scouting, and I want to talk a little bit about what summer scouting actually means, because in this case, we're trying to figure out where we land on these players now, what we're optimistic about for them, what we're pessimistic about for them, and just ultimately projecting where we see them in basically almost a year from now. So it's important to understand that a lot of these takes on these players are going to change because we have a whole other year of film that we haven't even gotten to yet, right? And I want to start off with receivers because I think receivers is where I specialize the most with in terms of watching film. It's just the thing that I hone in on the most. And it's also, in terms of this class, really intriguing. Now, I'm not going to be talking about Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman. And the reason why is because I think they are the most obvious, amazing top tier receiver prospects that we've seen in a while. And I just don't find the conversation around them right now very interesting because they're either going to bring that stock up even more and really show that the hype is warranted, or they might fall off a little bit and be like a top 10 pick instead of a top 1 pick. I don't find that conversation very interesting. And I'm not even going to start off with the guys that I have listed off after those two, but I do have guys that I want to talk about that I think are what I call the misfit category, which is they have strong flaws right now, but if those flaws get cleaned up, these guys will be top 20 picks, period. And those three players I want to talk about is ASU's Omarion Miller, Texas's Ryan Wingo, and Alabama's Ryan Coleman Williams, which I'm sure for the most part people are familiar with. Maybe Omarion's a bit of one that people don't know as well, but regardless, those are the three I want to talk about a little bit right now because I think they're the most interesting going into next year. So let's get into that a little bit. And I want to start off with Ryan Coleman Williams. Obviously, that huge first year comes onto the scene. I think you could even tell during that time that a lot of what he was doing was not going to be sustainable. I thought it was pretty obvious. Even that first game where he has these huge breakaway touchdowns, it's that's a great showing of athleticism, but that's not something I look at as very, there wasn't refinement in his routes. It's not like he was beating guys who were pressing him at the line very well. It was just kind of just showing off your yak ability and also just your hyper athleticism. You know what I mean? And I think because of that, we got a bit ahead of our skates. But that doesn't take away from the fact that that athletic profile is so incredibly real and volatile and worth talking about. So when it comes to this conversation, I think off the bat, we all understand that Ryan Coleman Williams is an unbelievably dynamic player. I mean, when we're talking about the explosive nature of his ability to play receiver, it's on the level of Odell Beckham Jr. Now, I mean to specify that as athletic ability because there's more to the equation, obviously. The problem is this guy is not physical at all. Whatsoever, not even a little bit. If you go through any of his tape, hell, if you even just watch a game of Bama, it's constantly pass breakups, getting shoved off of his route, getting pushed at the line of scrimmage. It's all this kind of stuff. And it's strange too, because he's had about a year to kind of put on more weight, try to fix that situation. But then you also see him sometimes in contested catch situations be dominant. So it's there is that strength within him. I wonder if maybe it's one of those things where at the catch point, he's quite strong, but maybe in terms of his lower half, his lower body, he just isn't able to really keep himself on his route in terms of just being more physical than the corner. That's definitely the case because I do think you see more of that physicality within the catch point opportunities. Route running wise, I think there's a lot of nuance that still needs to be put in there, a bit more refinement, but the natural separation ability is elite in my opinion. I think it's absolutely elite. Again, the problem is if you cannot be physical, then you're going to be shut down on every route, which is exactly what we saw last year with Bama. And so obviously that brings up the problem of what do we do about this, right? They've got other freshmen coming in, sophomores that are rising up that I think will start to muddy the waters of the pecking order of the room. But I don't think anyone's really going to be taking the wide receiver one role away from Ryan Coleman Williams. So the question is, can he get better? I mean, the biggest question is obviously quarterback play. Keelan Russell, if he's even going to start, right, I think is probably their best chance just because of the arm strength. And even at that, I don't know what to expect from Keelan Russell. There's talk about him, but there's also talk about him having some problems processing the field. So it's not like you have some guarantee. But again, we didn't know anything about Ty Simpson either. So I think the bigger problem is even with solid quarterback play, those issues still showed up last year. So the big thing with Ryan Coleman Williams is refinement and physicality, gaining muscle, even just playing with stronger play strength to be able to play himself into that realm of top 20, even just first round alone. Because right now he's a second round grade guy to me. So the big year that we have to hope for him is a year where we just see at least a little bit more physicality. I think you can live with the more raw route running if you just see some kind of evolution with the physicality, even if it just means being a little bit more physical on your breaks, just a little bit more physical at the catch point when it comes to like in breakers and slants and things like that, and not necessarily just 50-50 balls. But I think that has to be the core thing. Will that happen? I'm not really sure, because I think it's all in his hands. And that's the hard part. Because if he does do that and he does take that step, oh my God, we're talking about a top 25 pick, top 20 pick. Like, that's the level of athleticism and talent we're looking at here. The problem is, can he allow himself to take that next step? I don't know. I'm not saying no necessarily. I would lean towards the more pessimistic side, but I don't take an egregious side. I'm not aggressive in how I feel either way. But I think for the most part, I think that encapsulates who Ryan Coleman-Williams is. Obviously, the athleticism is the big X factor here. It's just, can he get more physical? So that'll be interesting to see. And it leads us to another guy that has not similar problems, but maybe catch point problems, whereas I think Ryan Williams has drop problems because it's concentration. The next guy we're going to talk about here, it's more of like a weird technique thing. We're going to be talking about Ryan Wingo of Texas, who I actually like better than Ryan Coleman-Williams quite a bit. I actually think he's quite great. The problem with Ryan Wingo is that he cannot catch to save his life. And it's not just a concentration issue, like I said, it is a technique issue, down to it. It is fundamentally an issue of tracking the ball over his shoulder. It's a fundamental issue of tracking the ball as it comes to him over the middle of the field. But it's weird because physically, I think he's all there. I think he has this weird combination of speed and physicality and compactness. Whenever I do comparisons, I like to make comparisons of like a fusion of two players. He reminds me of like a weird fusion between like Stephon Diggs and Jalen Waddle, where I think he has that breakaway speed and burst of Jalen Waddle, but his body's a bit more compact, like early years Stephon Diggs. I'm talking like Minnesota Diggs. And that's a very interesting combination. Route running wise, I still think there needs to be some refinement there, but he's, for the most part, pretty sharp. The big thing that I think is very impressive about him is he's actually quite good against press. He's actually really good at hand fighting. Usually when it comes to these guys that have these drop issues, you usually think they're going to be guys that struggle with press. But actually over the past 2 years, we started to see guys who have concentration drop issues or technique issues with the catch point, but they're also really good at hand fighting against press. I think Casey Concepcion was a guy like this last year, and I think Wingo is the same here, but obviously Wingo's bigger than Concepcion. So the big thing is, what can he do to get better to play himself into that top 25 range? I mean, it's pretty simple here. Catch the football, man. Like, I actually think his path to success is a lot easier than Ryan Coleman-Williams because he doesn't have to deal with a physicality issue right now on top of weird inconsistencies with the catch point stuff. Wingo's already there with everything else. It is purely catching technique. Now, the big question is, why has that not gotten better at all? I don't know. We will see when the season comes around, but maybe there'll be a bit of extra weight off of him, a bit of extra pressure off of him, obviously with Cam Coleman in the mix, who is very obviously going to be the wide receiver one. So I'm curious to see how that can unfold. Maybe that ends up giving him just a little bit more leeway to feeling less pressure and getting the easier look so he can just get his confidence back up. Maybe a few of those easy, quick hits across the middle of the field and a deep ball here and there for the first 3 weeks of the season ends up getting his confidence up. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see. So with Wingo, it's, again, a similar situation of being very flawed, but if you iron out some of those things, which is very doable, and man, we're talking about an incredible prospect right here. And it leads us to our next guy, who I feel easily the most confident about of these three guys, and that is ASU's Omarion Miller. I think of all these guys, he has the least amount of flaws by far. But I don't think he has the same athletic profile as these other two, even though I do think he has a great athletic profile. I don't think that Omarion Miller has the speed, the breakaway speed that like Williams and Wingo have. But I do think he has a bit of burst, and I think what's really special about him is his ability to play the ball at the catch point. Because it's not just being, out physical in guys. It's not like he's just bigger than everybody. He is an acrobat. He can get up there. He is so good at tracking the ball and allowing the defender to do most of the physicality at the catch point. It reminds me of JSN a little bit. Not entirely like body type wise at all, but specifically at the catch point. And the reason why I say this is because JSN has this great ability of being able to catch the ball without really having to go up for it, not leaping up, not doing anything. So say he's got a defender draped over his shoulder. He'll let that defender try everything he can to like jump over him, swipe his hand in front, but he's going to be so late with his hands and so like quietly deceiving with when it gets in his hands that you're never even gonna know it's there. So by the time he's catching it, he's not jumping up for it. It's just like a vacuum seal. It just comes, you don't even know where it went. And it really is a patience game. And I think that Omarion Miller has that patience at the catch point, which is very rare. You've seen a lot of receivers these days. Again, it's not like a thing you need necessarily, because if you're a dominant acrobatic ball winner, do that. But it's a very unique way of winning at the catch point that I think is worth noting. I think route running wise, that is what Miller is going to be looking at as the biggest jump he needs to take. I think it's there though. I think already what you're seeing in ASU from all the little training camp clips, it's getting there. He's getting smoother. I think the good thing right now is that he's learned to really pace his routes. Like every route looks the same for the most part tempo wise, right? Like he is running all these routes so smoothly by staying at the same speed and not overdoing it, trying to go really fast with these cuts and breaks, that you're seeing that he just has the silkiness about him. Now it's about getting those stems sharper, right? And you're seeing him do that. I've actually seen a few training camp clips where he's falling over because he's trying to cut so sharp. Again, though, that's all right. That's where we want him to be right now for him to become a first-round pick, because I think sky's the limit for this guy. I really do think that. I think he's much farther along than these other two. I have a higher grade on him right now. I have a first-round grade on him now, whereas Wingo and Williams, I think, will maybe be able to get a first-round grade as time goes on. But I think Miller right now, if Miller went in this draft, I would have taken him at the end of the first. Easily, no question. I think he's already at that point. I think he already has developed the skills enough at that focal point for me to be strong about him. He doesn't have as many egregiously fatal flaws to him that we see in guys like Williams and Wingo. So with Miller, it really just is getting sharper and more nuanced with your routes, which what better place to be than with Hines Ward as your receiver coach, right? That's fantastic. So we'll see how that goes for Miller. But it's an interesting grouping of these three guys because I think all three of these guys could play themselves in the first round. Now, realistically, there is usually maybe 6 or 7 first-round receivers at crazy as I can see going, just because it's the natural pecking order of things. Even if you believe some of these guys are going to get first-round grades, they might just slip to the second in the natural nature of it being a very strong class. So who do I see slipping to the second round regardless of the progress they make? I think Ryan Williams and I think Ryan Wingo will make progress. I don't know if it'll be enough progress for teams to be like smacking the green button, he's good, let's go take him in the top 10. So I think by the time they get drafted, we'll still be talking about the refinement they need to reach that next level. And it'll be optimistic. I think we'll be looking towards the right direction. I think it'll be good progress. But I think we'll still be thinking to ourselves, when he gets polished up, he'll be great, just in terms of the NFL. So I think there will be progress for those two players. I just don't know if it'll be first-round progress. Now, for Miller, I think it will be. It's funny because I think he has probably the worst quarterback situation of them. He has Cutter Boley. Obviously, with Texas, it's Arch Manning. And then obviously, I think for Ryan Williams, it's Keelan Russell, who's at least a more interesting prospect than Cutter Boley is by any stretch of the imagination. So you can do with that what you will. Maybe you feel a little bit more better about like a very static, fine quarterback like Cutter Boley for ASU. But regardless, I think that these three are really important to monitor because these are guys that could be truly, truly great receiver prospects. Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman level? No. But like Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson level? Absolutely. I think that's beyond a doubt in the cards for these guys. It's just about can they play themselves to that level. And we'll see. Like I said, I've got more videos coming up talking about a few other guys. There's some guys in this class that are really, really exciting, even outside of these three. Mike Matthews out of Tennessee, who we'll be talking about later on. Bryant Wesco out of Clemson. Even TJ Moore out of Clemson. Like there are some really, really interesting names in this class that I really want to talk about that I'm sure we'll get to as time goes on, but that's going to be it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, the idea here is to get out much more content than we're already putting out right now. That way we can get all this information to you guys. You can look back and see what we talked about here, and as the season goes on, we'll be able to look at it together and see, are these guys making that progress? What does it look like for them as a draft pick? And I'm excited to see how that goes down. I appreciate you guys watching. Please click the like button if you can. It helps get the video out to way more people so that they can see everything going on. Unfortunately, the YouTube algorithm's all over the place, so sometimes these videos just get kind of stuck in the cracks, but that's how it goes. That's all good. At the end of the day, this is a fun thing to do for me, and I appreciate getting to talk to you guys about it. It's fun. So thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.